Right, I think Mr. Dorgu is about to...
Mr. Chairman, yes. Can we please have the witness back? Thank you.
All right, ready to carry on?
Yes, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Yes, Mr. Willett.
Mr. Dorgu, thank you. Before we broke for lunch, I wanted to see if we could identify the gentleman that you spoke to in the entrance of the tower before you went up into the building. And I wonder if we might be able to do that by a photograph of him. I wonder if we could just have up on the screen, please, Mr. Documents Director, INQ 6044, INQ number 44. Just to see if this helps with your recollection. Now, here is a man coming back into the tower. Do you think, having looked at that, that that's the man you spoke to about a fridge outside the tower before you went up?
Possibly, yes.
Possibly.
That kind of build, complexion, hair, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, can I take you back to your statement? You've told us that you were on the third floor, or in the stairs, and then you say halfway down, page 3 of your statement, just above halfway, members of the public were coming past me on the stairs. Where were you standing when that was happening? Remember?
Where does it say that? Members of the public passing the stairs. I can't see that, but...
So let me help you.
Where was that?
If you go... It's halfway down page 3, just after the reference to come on, it's just a fridge.
Just a fridge.
And then you see it says...
A bit further down.
Just at the bottom of the screen.
Right,
Members of the public, you've
Yes.
changed it. Members of the public coming past, yes.
So halfway down, you say, I think it was Justin said to me.
The one was complaining fire on the 7th floor, yeah.
So you say, now, what we've got on the screen, third line down from what we've got on the screen, it was just a fridge. Members of the public were coming past me on the stairs there.
Yes.
Now, where were you standing, do you think, when that was happening?
I would have been in the stairwell of round about the third floor.
Okay. And what sort of condition were these people in terms of
They were
physical
fine,
condition?
not distressed, no signs of exposure to fire or smoke. They were fine.
They were fine. Did you speak to any of them?
No.
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 Did they try to speak to you?
No.
And then you say, I think it was Justin that said to me that a woman was complaining of fire on the 7th floor.
That's actually sorry to interrupt you, that's actually incorrect. It was 5th floor.
5th floor. So can we just replace the word 7th for the word 5th?
Yes.
Right. So where was Justin standing when he said that?
He would be with me on the 3rd floor stairwell.
Right.
Just above the 3rd floor.
Okay, so had he come down from anywhere, or?
I think he'd been up 1 or 2 floors. I think that's where a lady had told him on the 5th floor, my flat's on fire, or there's fire in her flat.
Right. And you said, I said to him, smoke or fire as smoke can travel, and said, definitely fire. So he said fire.
Definitely fire.
And then you say, I thought fuck as fire on the 7th. Again, is that?
Again, that should be 5th.
That should be 5th, yeah. Right. Fire doesn't spread on a block of flats. So did you have a conversation with him about what you were thinking?
Yes.
What did you say?
Because what he was saying was basically that the fire had spread, so smoke can travel anywhere. But when he said, a lot of people think their flat's on fire just because there's smoke in the vicinity of the flat, they left the window open, and smoke from the adjoining flat enters their flat. They think it's on fire, so it's quite common. So I almost kind of rolled my eyes, is it smoke or is it actually fire? And when he said fire, that's an entirely different situation. So now fire has been confirmed in the 5th floor. I think he was on the radio trying to say that, and then he ran upstairs, I ran up with him, we went to the 5th floor, 6th floor, possibly the 7th.
Okay. And then you say, Well, you say fire doesn't spread on a block of flats. What was your thinking at that stage about whether compartmentation at Grenfell Tower was still holding up?
Clearly, compartmentation failed.
Right.
But as in with, for example, Shepherd's Court, it was not. It means we have to get a fire crew in there on the 5th floor.
Okay. And did you have any thoughts about how or why compartmentation had failed so as to lead to fire spread?
The usual way for a compartment to fail will be through the window. Either a window's been left open and it's gone on the outside of the building, cladding notwithstanding, even in normal buildings, a concrete building, it can travel up the outside of a building to the next floor up, catch the curtains, and enter the next compartment.
Right. So, okay. And when you were with... Okay. Mr. Chairman, we have
you've got a problem,
technical
have you?
problem.
Very sorry, something happened at lunch, the power surge. We just need to reboot it.
Right, how long will that take?
Literally 1 or 2 minutes, if you wouldn't mind pausing.
Excuse me.
Should we sit here while you do it, or would you rather...
Yes.
All right, well, why don't you take a seat for a moment?
Thank you. Could I turn this fan on as well? Is that all right?
Is it on or off?
It seems to be off.
Here you are, is that better?
Thanks.
Good, good. Right, we'll just sit here for a short time while
Happily.
and sort out the technical problem. Right. Right, you ready to go? There we are. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Mr. Dorgu, so just to say that we're clear, you were standing, were you, with Justin O'Byrne in the stairway by the 3rd floor lobby when he told you that there was fire on the 5th?
Yes.
Yes. Did you radio that news down to the Bridgehead?
Either me or Justin would have done so, definitely.
I see. Do you remember which?
No.
Okay.
One of us would have.
In terms of your recollection, how confident are you that one or other of you did radio that?
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did you go next?
I then went up to the 5th floor. I think Justin was ahead of me. He might have gone 1 floor beyond that. And I think I helped a BA team in there. So BA team, Tom Abel's team, came up. That's how I know it was the 5th floor, because Tom has the same recollection as me as a lady in the corner who I described helping escape.
And who did Tom Abel come up with?
Oh, I've forgotten his name. I can't remember. Crew member from Hammersmith, Wayne Archer.
Wayne Archer.
Wayne Archer.
Right, thank you. And you say in your statement, just in the next sentence, this is exactly halfway down page 3, I went up to the 6th floor,
Yes.
maybe the 7th, getting people. Did you go on to the 5th floor?
Yes.
So you went to the 5th after the... Right, so how did it go? You went from the 3rd floor stairs
So
to the
3rd
5th?
floor stairwell.
Yes.
Justin said there was fire on the 5th. So there was people coming out by that point, more and more. Push past them, came upstairs to the 5th floor.
Right.
I was helping a gentleman, and a lady, the couple I described with their child, were coming out of a corner flat with a pram.
On the 5th floor, was that?
On the 5th floor,
That's
yeah. I
the
thought it was
fifth
the 6th, but actually it's the 5th floor, because Tom Abel and Wayne Archer were committed only on the 5th floor. And
Right.
Tom never went above the 5th the whole night, so I'm confident it was the 5th. Apparently, when I saw Tom in the stairwell, I told him and Wayne where the fire was, because it would be directly above the fire on the 4th floor, which would be the kitchen.
Okay. Just pausing there. What were the conditions like in the at the 5th floor in the stairs, first of all?
In the stairs, clear.
And in the lobby?
Clear. Pretty clear.
Pretty clear.
There was a little bit of smoke coming out of the gentleman's flat, maybe smoke in the area, or maybe his flat, but enough for them to want to come out. And they weren't in that area.
Right. Did you take any steps to knock on any of the doors on the 5th
Yes,
floor?
we knocked on other doors on that floor.
All of them?
Pretty sure all of them, yeah.
Okay, you and who?
Tom was with me, Wayne Archer. They did that before they set in. Justin may well have been there because he remembers the smoke from the 5th floor coming out being more significant than it should have been. By that point, I'd moved up. So I helped the lady with her pram because she wanted to put the baby in the pram and go in the lift. And I made it fairly clear that they didn't have that option.
Right.
They had to move quickly.
Okay, so we're still on the 5th.
Yes.
And you say, just a few lines down, there was a woman with a baby who was scared trying to put them in a pram with an Arab-looking man and a young kiddie. She was just faffing about, saying about getting the lift. I said, you're not going in the lift, just get out. I nearly threw them down the stairs. Can you just describe to me, was there a sense of urgency?
Yes.
Why was that?
Because compartmentation failed, so the fire had spread to their floor, so which I didn't think at that time that fire would spread around the building laterally to their flat, but clearly they were on their way out, so they'd smelt smoke. And smoke is lethal, more lethal than fire. So for that reason, I was then anxious. And also they had a child with them, so I picked up the baby, pushed it into her chest and said, you've got to leave now. Escorted them out down the stairs. They were anxious and confused, but we just got them out of the building.
Yeah. Now, Tom Abel, I think, says that he and Archer went with you to the 5th floor, to flat 26, and attempt to make entry. Do you remember them making entry into flat 26?
I wouldn't be in the lobby area because the lobby area would be compromised with smoke. Again, potential backdraft. Or just smoke logging. So I'd be smoke logged. So no, I was in the stairwell on my way to the 6th by then.
Right. So you go up to the 6th, and what was the stairway like on the way up to the 6th?
At that point, clear.
Clear. And did you go into the lobby on the 6th?
Yes.
And what were the conditions like there? Do you remember?
Clear. Nothing, not extraordinarily smoky, but people started coming out. I think it was from the flat area directly above the kitchen, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. And I think they came out.
Right. And in your statement, you go on to say, just 3 lines up from the end of that main long paragraph on page 3, I had a feeling that things were getting bad. I knew it wasn't good. It was smoky in the flat, but just wisps in the lobby. Which flat are you describing there?
The one I described as the 6th floor, that was actually the 5th.
Right.
That was the flat. So it was smoky in the flat, just wisps in the lobby. That's the couple who were leaving with their baby.
I see.
So the reason they'd left is because there was wispy smoke in their flat.
Okay, I see. And you say, not too dark and no BA at this point. I was going up and down. Could you just explain what you mean when you say I was going up and down?
Up and down the stairs. I was escorting different people. So people came out the 6th, I'd escort them down, run back up, escort someone else.
Okay, so we're on the... How many people do you think came out of the 6th floor at that time?
To be honest, as I said in my statement there, it seemed like everyone was getting out of 4 or 5 flats. That should actually say the 6 flats on each floor. So everyone seemed to be getting out. There seemed to be people at each door. So I went downstairs to get my BA set.
Did you get up to the 7th floor?
I'm not sure. If I didn't, it's because other people were up there. Justin was up there. I might have gone as far as the 7th and done the same there, but I could see people were coming out now. So my concern was, if you apply the rule of compartment firefighting, therefore someone has to get into the 5th, that's Tom. And I realised we haven't got many people there at all. People doing water, officers, Bridgehead, Justin, me and Dave. There's hardly anyone to get breathing apparatus on. Don't know when the next trucks are coming. Haven't heard any radio messages that we've made it up to 8 pumps, 10 pumps, 15. As far as I knew, there was still only us 4 there and us 4 going to be there for some time. So I remember trying to send messages on the radio trying to say what was doing. Don't think anything got through because people were talking constantly. And that's why I went downstairs. So I could see people leaving on the immediate floors around the fire floor. That's why I went downstairs to get breathing apparatus on because I'd have to attack the fire in the next compartment up on the 6th floor.
Right. Now, just taking this a bit more in stages, you're on the 6th floor.
Yes.
Did you radio down what you had found on the 6th floor?
Tried to, yes.
tried to? Who did you try to contact first?
I would be on channel 1, so anyone on the command channel.
Right. Did you succeed, do you think, in getting through?
I don't think so, no.
Why do you say that?
Because there's constant traffic. So there's constant traffic. Obviously, I didn't know it, but oncoming vehicles, other people using the command channel, it's constant. So if there's constant chatter, you can't actually get in with your message. There's no way of prioritising my message, regardless of how much of a priority it is.
Okay. And could you hear on your radio anybody else trying to radio down to Mike Dowden or the Bridgehead about what they were finding on the floors inside the tower, above or below you?
Yes. I think Justin did at one point, and I tried. I don't think there was anyone else there really to have done it. The BA crew may well have done as well, because they may well have said that on, because they'd had a Barry set, and they'd be on a different channel, which would be less congested than ours. Because the only people on the channel 6 would be the BA crew and the Bridgehead. Right. Everybody else on the fireground, everyone, from watch manager down, is on channel 1.
And on the 6th floor, did you take any steps to alert the other, the occupants?
Knocked on doors, yeah.
What did you do? So you knocked on doors?
People coming out, and when I was satisfied that people were awake and emerging from each of the flats, and someone else was there with me, and they were coming out at that point, I moved downstairs.
Coming down. And can you describe for us what physical condition they were in?
Not distressed. No one's suffering the effects of smoke inhalation.
Right. Did you get a look into any of the flats on the 6th floor?
No.
So
no, and if I did, there was nothing of concern. Right. It was more of a precaution because there's a fire directly below them now.
How long do you think you spent on the 6th floor?
A few minutes, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute.
And where did Justin O'Byrne go?
Justin would be above me, I think.
Right. So was anybody else with you on the 6th floor?
Not that I can remember.
And the conditions in the lobby on the 6th floor as you left?
Clear.
Still clear. And then after the 6th floor, I think you say, well, where did you go next? I should ask you. Did you?
I went out. So either I went to I can't remember, the floors looked the same, but I would have gone either to the 7th floor, or Justin said he was going to the 7th floor. So Justin probably would have been with me on the 6th, and then he went up, and I went down.
Right.
To get my BA set. And also, because I wasn't happy with the radio traffic, I would have gone out to tell them personally. That's what I said to Mike Dowden when I went out.
Right, let's take this a bit more slowly.
Sorry.
So you left the 6th floor and
Yes.
you went down to the Bridgehead?
I passed the Bridgehead, yes.
Okay. Now, in your statement at the bottom of page 3, you say, on the bridge I saw Brien O'Keeffe, the watch manager from Kensington. And just to put that in context, that's just after the end of the paragraph before, where you say it seemed like everyone was getting out the 4 or 5 flats, so I went downstairs.
Yes.
So it looks from that as if you leave, I think, is this right, the 6th floor and go down to the Bridgehead?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Okay. So on the bridge I saw Brien O'Keeffe, the watch manager from Kensington. Did you get any impression as to how long he'd been there?
No, not long. Won't have been long.
Right. And you say, I said to him, it's spread.
Yes.
What exactly did you tell him? Do you remember?
I will have told him that it had gone to the 5th floor, but he will have already known that because he would have committed Tom Abel and Wayne Archer to the 5th floor. So he would have known that. I would have told him that smoke was on the 6th floor, possibly the 7th, but the fire at the moment was on the 5th floor. Right.
Can I just ask you to look at your contemporaneous notes? On page 2, at the a third of the way down, you say, I went to ECO and told watch manager O'Keeffe this. Now, I just want to understand what the this is, because earlier on that page, you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Dorgu, when I'm reading your writing, but I think you say, we informed BA Control what we had done.
Yes.
O'Byrne, or FF O'Byrne, told me the fire had spread upward.
Yes.
Informed by residents evacuating. We set into the dry riser on the 5th floor. We were then informed by residents that smoke was on higher floors and that flats were actually on fire. Now,
Yeah.
first of all, where were you when you were told that? I think that takes us back a little in the story, but where were you when you were told by residents that the flats were actually on fire?
I was told that via Justin, who'd been informed by residents, so that would have been 5th floor, around about the 5th floor.
Right, and how were you told that? Was it by
Verbally.
Verbally by...
Justin was told verbally by residents, which is when he told me, and I rolled my eyes and said, is it fire or is it smoke?
That's that conversation.
That's that conversation.
Right, okay, that's clear. Then you say, I went to ECO, entry control, and told them, and told Watch Manager O'Keeffe this. Can you remember what it was you said to Watch Manager O'Keeffe?
That it had spread to the 5th floor, that it was smoky, residents were coming down, and then I'd evacuated or raised the alarm on the 6th floor, the 5th floor, and I'd brought people down, which he'd have known because they would have to have come past him.
Yes.
And he would have known the 5th floor is on fire because Tom Abel and Wayne Archer, he'd committed them to that floor. I think I helped Tom set into the dry riser on the 5th floor.
So do you remember telling Watch Manager O'Keeffe that higher flats were on fire? Flats on higher floors?
Yeah, higher, yes, than the 4th.
And what did he... Do you remember what he said or did in response?
No, actually, I didn't really hang around.
No. And who else, do you remember, was at the Bridgehead at that point?
Alex Decent Albin, I think. I don't think Justin was at that point. I think he was at higher floors at that point.
Right. And you then, going back to your statement, you say, in the second line, a youngish white woman said to me that her bedbound dad was on the 15th floor. I said to her that he'll be fine. A 10-floor spread of fire would be unthinkable. There's no game plan for that. Do you remember where did you speak to her?
I was at the Bridgehead at that point.
Right.
So she'd come out from whichever floor she was on.
Right. Did she mention a flat number?
No.
And you said did you say a 10-floor spread of fire was unthinkable?
No, that's what I thought.
That's what you thought.
I actually said to her that he'll be fine. They said the 15th floor is the safest place to be. He's more than 10 floors away from the fire.
At that stage, did you know that the fire had spread up to the 7th floor?
No, I don't think I have.
How far up did you know at that stage it had spread?
I knew it had gone to the 5th floor because I helped Tom set in, and I knew they were fighting fire on the 5th floor. That had been confirmed by Justin by the residents. On the 6th floor, there were reports of smoke on the 6th floor, which is why I started to evacuate the 6th floor. I think Justin was with me then. And because if the fire might go up one more, as it did at Shepherd's Court, go up another floor, that's when I knew we needed BA wearers and I had to get a set on.
Right. Given the speed of spread of fire between the 4th and the 5th floor and the spread of smoke up to the 6th, which you had experienced, what made you think that it was unthinkable that fire would spread further as far as the 10th floor?
Because it's never happened. It's never happened in my experience or anyone in living memory in London that an entire block of flats has gone up. It just wouldn't. It would be unthinkable. You would, like 1 or 2, 3 floors, like Shepherd's Bush Court maybe, but for it to travel literally faster than I can run up the floors would be just unthinkable. I believed it was smoke travelling up through open windows because it's summertime. It's one of probably the hottest evening of the year. So everyone has their windows open, especially at higher levels because there's no security risk. So people have windows wide open. So it's not unusual for people to experience smoke, even from an adjoining tower block, if the wind's in that direction. So people often think their flats are on fire, but actually it's just smoke. So for it to travel 2, 3, 4, 5 floors wouldn't be unusual at all. But for it to be actually fire, to be on fire, flats for the compartment to fail, be penetrated by fire, and actually be on fire in minutes is unthinkable at that point.
Did you have any thoughts at the time about where the smoke on the 6th floor was coming from?
Usually, as I said, it would be through windows, and it would usually be, and because it had been, the fire on the 5th was reported to be on the same place in the building as the 4th floor fire, therefore it seems to be going directly vertically up. It's not spreading laterally, which would have been more of an issue. Right. It's spreading upwards. Therefore you would think it's going from window to window, open window, smoke, possibly fire. You wouldn't expect it to go much further.
When you spoke to the young woman at the Bridgehead, did she say anything to you, do you remember, about the conditions on the 15th floor? No, she didn't say there was any, she didn't report any smoke. She wasn't suffering from smoke inhalation. She was just worried. And people often are. If they come out of a building, they tell you there's a fire. They're like 10 floors above the fire. They're not involved in it. They've smelt smoke and just evacuate themselves. And actually, it's one compartment with a window open. We extinguish that fire and they're fine. That happens nearly every high-rise. There'll be people thinking they can smell smoke and strong smell of smoke. They don't know where it's coming from, so they panic and leave. That's not unusual. And to be honest, I presume she was the same. Did you have, at that stage, did you have any idea as to what was happening on the exterior of the tower?
No, didn't find out till I went outside.
Do you have any communications yourself with Mike Dowden, who was standing outside?
Yes.
And what were those communications?
As I left, because of the massive amount of radio chatter that was constant, I hadn't heard the messages of them making pumps 8 or 10 or 15. So as I left, I ran past him and he was running around. And I said, have you made this up to like 8 or 10? Because I thought this is going to be at least 2 flats on fire. And he said, I've made it up to 15. And I just said, good. And then I turned around and saw the building.
Okay, we'll come to that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Before we do, can I just ask you, you say in your statement, at the bottom of page 3, Brien and Justin O'Byrne were doing the board. Chris Secret was the officer with me. Hammersmith were also there by then, as half an hour had gone by. So, first of all, you say, is this right, that Justin O'Byrne was at the Bridgehead?
Yes, I think by that point he was, yes.
So he'd gone up into the tower and come back down
yes.
again?
Yeah.
And do you think he heard your conversation with the woman?
I don't know. I don't know if he was there at that point or shortly after, or he was there and he was busy setting up the Bridgehead and setting up new boards, or I don't know.
When this happened and he was at the Bridgehead and you were at the Bridgehead, did you have any discussion with him about his journey up into the tower?
Not that I recall, no.
Right. So did he say anything to you about the conditions he'd experienced higher up in the tower?
No.
Okay. Do you know what anyone did about rescuing the bedbound man on the 15th floor at that stage?
No.
Okay. All right. You say Chris Secret was the officer with me. What was he doing?
I think because Brien O'Keeffe, Watch Manager O'Keeffe, was now in charge of the Bridgehead. He's a senior officer, or senior to Chris.
Yeah.
Therefore, Chris is then free to do another task. We went outside to get our BA sets.
Yes, and you say at the top of page 4, I ran outside to get my set on, back at the pump, which was at the same place at this point. Now,
yes.
We have your exit time as 01:28:11 seconds or so. Can I just show you the picture? It's INQ 125, or tab 6 in the CCTV bundle. Now, it may be difficult to identify yourself from the back, but
Yeah.
would that be, I mean, slightly strange question, but is that you, I suppose?
I would presume so. At that kind of timestamp, yes, I would think.
Right, okay. Now, we can see quite a number of people coming past you. At that stage, could you just give us an impression of how many people were coming out of the tower?
From the 5th floor, maybe 8, 9, 10. 6th floor, maybe the same. Maybe. And coming, or you know, getting ready to leave as I left the floor. They're aware and they were coming out.
And can you help us, can you describe for us the physical condition they were in?
No one that I saw was reporting smoke inhalation or exhibiting signs of smoke inhalation.
You didn't see that?
No.
What about signs of distress?
Anxiety, yes. Mild anxiety. It's the middle of the night. You bang people out of bed. The word fire is used, and instantly there's a level of anxiety, obviously. So, not extraordinarily, no.
And by this stage, 0128, did you know how many pumps had been made up?
I didn't know, no. That's why I came outside and asked Mike Dowden if he'd made it up to 8 or 10.
Okay. Now, you say at the top of page 4 of your statement, I could see fire licking up the side of the building as I ran out looking up to my left. I'm not sure if it had reached the top yet, but it was at least halfway. Could you see the fire actually climbing?
I wouldn't say it was climbing. I didn't look at it long enough to see if it was actually moving level to level, but I could see there was a significant block of fire from the 4th floor, maybe to the 8th floor, 9th floor.
Okay. What sort of angle of vision did you have of the fire at that stage as you came out of the tower?
Yeah, it would be on my left,
Right.
so it would be the east side of the floor.
Okay. Did you go back to your pump?
Sorry, did I go back to my
To your pump?
pump? Yes.
So, okay. How far beyond the southeast corner of the tower did that take you?
Beyond parallel, maybe a few metres beyond parallel, 5,
Right.
10 metres beyond parallel. So I could see it as I ran past, saw it, and then carried on to the pump, got my set on.
What did you think when you saw the fire?
It looked like the facade, the nice new shiny facade they put on there, was on fire and had caught light. So, yeah, that's all I thought. It didn't occur to me that would be an extremely dangerous method of fire trouble. Smoke trouble, yes. I thought it would, because it would be a fairly thin layer of cladding. So I just thought it would burn off, and it wouldn't cause major damage. Might cause a lot of smoke, but that'd be it.
So even at that stage when you saw the exterior on fire, are you so I've got your evidence clear, are you saying you didn't actually have a heightened level of concern?
Yes, but not to the level that it deserved. I was concerned, as in the side of a building appears to be on side, the facade is on fire. But no, I didn't recognise the significance of cladding, and I had no idea that it was humanly possible to put something that's flammable and attach it to the outside of a building.
Right. And indeed you do. You go on the 4th line on page 4 to say, I thought it must just be the cladding.
Yeah.
I didn't think the whole thing was going to burn. I just want to understand that distinction you're making between the cladding and the whole thing.
Yes.
So what did you...
Because the whole thing, as in Grenfell Tower itself, as it still stands today, is concrete. It's a concrete box. It's a series of concrete boxes. So the outside, to make it look nice, they put cladding on the outside, which is why I said in my statement it looks shiny and new. And it's all then good, but it wasn't an intrinsic part of the building. Also, I thought it's just something that's stuck on the front, and if it was a light, it wouldn't necessarily lead to ignition of the entire building.
I see. And did you see, or could you see, whether the fire had broken back into the building at any stage?
No, I couldn't see.
You couldn't see. Did you think Well, did you have any thoughts about whether it might be able to break back into the building from the exterior facade?
Not at that point, because whilst I could see several floors of fire, I didn't realise it was travelling, and it was travelling quickly. So I didn't get a sense of it's really screaming up the side of the tower as it was. I looked at it momentarily and then moved on.
Okay. Given that you knew that there had already been spread of fire on the inside, at least 4th to 5th floors, did you have any thoughts about whether or not the fire had broken back into the building from the outside?
No, again, because it was vertically above the original compartment, my presupposition would be that the one part of the compartment that will fail will be the window, either because it's open or because it fails. Whereas at Shepherd's Court, because they put sealant around it and the window itself, that compartment fails because of that. So the fire was travelling vertically upwards in the same plane. Therefore, it was an expected and experienced before level of fire spread.
So just exploring that answer a bit more, drawing on the Shepherd's Court experience as you just have, was it your understanding from Shepherd's Court that a fire on the exterior of a building could break back in it through a window space because of the use of sealant?
I sat on several high-rise jobs, yes.
Right. So would that mean that in your experience, where a fire travels on the outside of a building, the use of particular materials might not retard or block the passage of fire from the outside to the inside?
Yes, I think the answer to your question is yes. I was not aware, never been made aware, never had any training on the extent materials clad to the outside of a building retrospectively could have on fire spread.
And is that right even after Shepherd's Court, which you've used as your example?
Yes, yeah, no training whatsoever.
Now, in your statement on page 4, you say 6 lines down from the top, not hearing anything more, I spoke to Gov Mike Dowden, the watch manager from North Kensington, who said he'd made it a 15-pump fire, and I said, good. You say not hearing anything more. Not hearing anything more from who?
I think on the radio.
Right, I see. And where were you when you spoke to Mike Dowden?
It's virtually outside the front entrance, just outside it.
Okay. And can you say he'd said he'd made it a 15-pump fire, and you said, good. Did you discuss anything else?
No, that was it. I was running.
Right. Who referred to 15 pumps? Was it you or him?
He did. I suggested make them 8 or 10 because from what I'd seen, it was one. And he said, I've made them 15. And I said, good.
Okay. And had you been, when you had this conversation, had you been back to your appliance by this stage, or were you on your way to?
No, I was on my way to the appliance.
And in your contemporaneous notes, you say you went to the pump with Chris Secret and fetched BA.
Yes.
That's right, is it? Okay. Now we have you coming back into the main entrance in BA at 1:30:26 or so. And when I mention these times, they're always subject to potential adjustments, but that's the time we've got. It's camera 4, tab 9 of the CCTV bundle. It's INQ 128. If I can just ask you to be shown that. Now, that's
Oh, okay.
that's you.
Yes.
Yes, carrying
Hose.
in your left hand. And who do you
Yes.
think's behind you?
I can't say actually. I can't see the rank marking, so I don't think it's Chris Secret. I don't know. Actually.
Okay. All right. There's a better image, in fact, at 1:30 and 30 seconds at INQ 129, if I could just ask you to be shown that. Maybe not. Ah, yes. Now, can you identify yourself on that picture?
No, I'm not in that picture. That is one of Kensington's crew. In the middle, firefighter O'Hanlon, firefighter, crew manager Sefton from Hammersmith. So they would be, I think they were after me because I ran past Matty Sefton putting his set on.
Right. Oh, well, that's a happy coincidence. Which one is Sefton, do you think?
At the back with the bald head.
Right. And then moving forward from the back of the queue, who's the next one?
Firefighter O'Hanlon.
Yes. And then
I think that's firefighter Broderick.
And then in front,
not sure actually.
holding what looks like an enforcer.
He's holding an enforcer and a branch. I don't know who that is actually.
Okay, all right. And now, if you then go to your statement at page 4, paragraph 1 a little bit lower down, you say, Dave Badillo then said he had keys to a flat, I think 176, on the 20th floor, where a 12-year-old girl who was on her own had called her mum to say that she was in trouble. Now, just pausing there, where were you when Dave Badillo told you that?
I was at Bridgehead. I'd gone up to Bridgehead to basically get tasked. Either they'd have had information of where the fire was, which was probably the next compartment up. So I was waiting to be briefed. I was probably going to go in with Chris Secret, and then Dave Badillo came upstairs.
Right. Now, we're going to go on with this line of questioning, but Mr. Dorgu, it may be convenient now for a break for you.
Okay.
Good point from your point of
Yes.
view. Yes, all right. Shall we have a short break? 10 minutes be enough, do you think?
That's 5, I'm fine. Yeah.
Well, we'll say 10.
10's
5
good.
doesn't work so well.
All right.
All right.
10's good.
So we'll
Thank you.
come back at 5 to 3, and please don't talk about your evidence while we're out.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you very much. All right, 5 to 3, please. Yes, Mr. Dorgu, ready? Please. Yes, you're flying in your air. Right. Yes, happy to go on?
Yes.
Good, thank you very much.
Mr. Dorgu, thank you. Now, I just asked you before the break where you were when you had your discussion with Dave Badir about the 12-year-old girl, and you said you were at the Bridgehead.
Yes.
Was Dave Badir at the Bridgehead at that time as well?
Yes.
Who else was there with you? Do you remember?
I was at Bridgehead, it's by the stairs, so I was on the second stair. Dave was below me, watch manager O'Keeffe, Justin O'Byrne, crew manager Secret, obviously, and another guy from Paddington called Jim Wolfenden.
Jim Wolfenden, right. Okay. Now, you say in your statement that Dave said he had the keys to a flat. Do you remember receiving any other information from any other source about a girl on the 20th floor in a flat?
No, everything I knew about the girl and the flat, it was all from Dave.
All from Dave?
Yeah.
So you don't remember a fire survival guidance call coming
No.
to the Bridgehead
No.
from control?
Not at all. I didn't know they had them even coming in at that time, so no.
Right. Did you know that Dave Badir had already tried to access the 20th floor on his own?
No, not at that point, no.
He didn't tell you that?
No.
Did Dave Badir say anything to you or to Chris Secret or Brien O'Keeffe about the conditions that he'd encountered higher up the building on an earlier trip?
No.
Did you know he'd taken an earlier trip up the building?
No.
Right.
No.
Now, you say that myself, Dave Badir, Chris Secret went to go up, but the lift wasn't working, so we picked up our equipment and walked to the 20th floor. Did you tell anybody who was running the Bridgehead, either watch manager O'Keeffe or the person running entry control, that that's what you were doing?
We will have done, yes, but also they'll have seen us disappear off to the left where the lifts were, so that they will have known we didn't go straight up the stairs.
They'd know you'd gone upstairs, but did they know where you'd gone? Did they know your destination?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Who told the Bridgehead where you were going? Do you remember?
Dave did. Dave basically was at the Bridgehead with me and Chris. I think he was originally going up with Jim Wolfenden, because me, Chris and Dave were all in the same crew. We decided to go together as a three. Dave basically said, I've got the keys to a flat. There's a 12-year-old girl. She's in trouble. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know whether... I presumed there wasn't fire in her flat, but I presumed it was smoke.
Right.
And he's going to go and get her. So he's got keys to the flat. We didn't need any breaking in gear. So therefore we told the Bridgehead where we were going, which would have been Alex Decent-Orwin or Brien O'Keeffe or Justin. But they will have made a note of it on the board. We'll have gone round to the lifts. So they will have seen that we didn't go immediately straight up the stairs. So they'll know we took a lift.
So two things. Just to confirm that when you left the Bridgehead, you did tell either Alex
Yes.
or Brian where you were going?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Secondly, you said, I think in your answer just now, that you presumed there wasn't fire in that flat, but I presumed it was smoke.
Yes.
So at that stage, did you think that the smoke had got that high up in the building?
I believe that it was possible, especially as I'd seen smoke on the outside on the cladding at maybe the 8th, 9th, 10th floor, so that was quite smoky. So yes, it seemed feasible, quite feasible. And if somebody's reporting smoke, then, or they're distressed, then yes.
Did you discuss with anybody your presumption that there was smoke already on the 20th floor?
No, the three of us knew that. We didn't really have time to discuss it really.
Right.
We're just going to rescue her, see if we can do a rescue, and that's it.
Did you then go under air?
Yes, at the bridgehead, yes.
Okay. And you handed in your tallies at the bridgehead?
Yes.
Okay. Now, just to give this a point in time, Mr. Dorgu, we haven't shown you yet the telemetry data schedule. Can we just have a look at that? Tab 1. And we have in the BA timeline 2, the second chunk, in light blue, we
Yes.
see the three of you, Badia, Secret and Dorgu,
Yes.
all North Ken, tally out. And in your case, this is the green column, you're tallying out at 01:35:01, and logging on to the ECB at 01:35:19. Does that tie in with your recollection of roughly how long you've been on the fire ground since you'd arrived? Some 35 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And just going back to your statement, we'll come back to the telemetry data shortly. But going back to your statement, you said in the middle of page 4, 3 lines down from the start of the second paragraph, we told Justin we were going up as he was on the board. Just to be clear, did you tell Justin? That's Justin O'Byrne. isn't it?
Justin O'Byrne. Yes.
Just to be clear, did you tell him we're going to the 20th floor?
Yes.
Okay.
Gave him the
Did
flat
you-
number.
And you say he was on the board.
Yes.
Did you see him write that down anywhere?
I can't remember him writing it down, but I could 100% know that he would have written it down.
On what, do you think?
On the board.
The
so,
board.
So when you give him your tally, it has your name, the amount of air you have. The board will then electronically estimate, give or take, your breathing rate, your working rate, when your timer whistle would be, when how much air you have, and he would write in the remarks column, search and rescue, 20th floor, flat 176.
I see. Okay. So that's the entry control board.
Yes.
What about the forward information board?
He may well have written it on there as well at a later time, but the bridgehead may well have been getting busy after that. I think Hammersmith's crews were coming up behind us.
Okay.
Jim Wolfenden was there. These people were going to be committed. So the entry control officer's first port of call is to record the information of the BA wearers. So you have to know, you have to have their tally. It has to be updated with Chinograph. If the air levels dropped between the time I did my A set back at the station and now, has to be noted. So you know how much air I have, and you have to know where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm carrying.
Can I just take a very small diversion? Just ask you. Entry control board and forward information board. When would you write the information about where you were going on the forward information board?
When you had time, basically.
Right.
So it would be at the first convenient place, or if you had another member of crew to do that.
Right. So what would you put onto the forward information board?
Any information you couldn't really fit on a BA board, because a BA board remarks column is small. It would say literally 3-man crew. It would say the flat number, the floor, what you were doing, search and rescue, and that's all you have room for, really. So on the forward information board, you could write a more comprehensive map of what was going on.
Right. That's helpful. Thank you. So we have you tallying out at the time we looked at, 01:35:01 in your case. And then, can you remember what you took up with you?
A line of 45mm hose and a branch.
Okay. And what about Chris Secret? What did he have with him? Do you remember?
If I'm not mistaken, a line of 70mm hose and a 45mm hose.
Why would he take a 70mm hose into the building?
I'm not sure. Essentially, when you plug into the dry riser, you'd have the wider hose first, which allows you greater pressure, so it carries more water. You could easily often use 45mm hose, but if he had 70, it's either because that's what was available at the time, or it's because he just happened to have that on it.
Right. The nozzle of a dry riser outlet, how big is that? What sort of size hose does that fit?
Both, because the coupling is the same. So the coupling is a specific diameter. The hose attached to it can be 70 mil or 45 mil.
Right. Is there an adapter at the...
No, there's no adapter needed. It's just that the hose itself is the piece of the coupling that enters the hose itself will taper down
I see.
to an appropriate level.
Right. Okay. Now, halfway down page 4, just after the reference to telling Justin, you say, we had to walk up to the 20th floor with all the kit as the lift wasn't working. Held the lift button, pushed it any floor, it wouldn't work. Now, just pausing there, was it you who tried it?
It may well have been crew manager's secret.
Which floor were you on when you tried the lift?
When it stopped or when we got in?
When you got, well, at that point, when you say, held the lift button, pushed it any floor, it wouldn't work. Where were you? Which floor were you on?
It stopped on the 8th floor, I think.
Right, okay, let's just take this a bit more slowly. When you leave the bridgehead,
Yes.
how do you get away from the bridgehead up into the building? By stairs or
You
by
go
lift?
by the lift, so we went around to the left to the lift lobby.
Right. So you took the lift from the second floor?
Yes.
And where did the lift stop?
8th floor.
8th floor, okay. And when you say held the lift button, pushed it any floor, it wouldn't work, where were you? Were you still in the lift?
Yeah, so we tried to call it and it wouldn't come. We were in the lift, the doors opened, and even though you pressed the button, the doors wouldn't shut again. Smoke came in, so we had to leave.
Right, okay. So when you say, just so I'm clear, when you say held the lift button, pushed it any floor, it wouldn't work, you were on the 8th floor, doors were open,
Yes.
and it wouldn't go any
Yes.
further, is that?
Because if it's a firefighting lift, the difference between a firefighting lift and a normal lift that you or I would call would be that you hold the button in, and you have to hold the button until you get to the floor. Whereas normally you just press floor 8 and you go to 8. We have to hold it to get to that point. So we held it, we pushed different buttons, nothing was happening. Smoke came in anyway into the lift, so we left.
Did Chris Secret tell you anything about his experiences about trying to get it to work as a firefighter lift at the very start
No.
of the incident?
No.
Okay.
Again, I don't think I was in the lift at that point, so I didn't know.
Right. What did you understand about the capabilities of the lift as a firefighter's lift?
That we basically would have control over it, so we could call it down to the bridgehead, to the floor. We could travel up and down as we needed to
Right.
to effect rescues and distribute equipment.
Okay. And so I think I've got your evidence right. You didn't have a conversation with Chris Secret about whether the lift was functioning in accordance with that capability. No. Right. So 8th floor, the doors open, they don't close again. What were the conditions like on the 8th floor in the lobby?
Smoky, because we had to leave the lift because it was obviously filling with smoke.
And how dense was the smoke?
In breathing apparatus, it's difficult to assess, but it was smoky. It was visible smoke. Right. You wouldn't want to breathe it in.
So you then decide to use the stairs, and you explain the decision-making you got to that. In the last part of the second paragraph, on page 4, you say, it wasn't like we were taking a risk, it could have been done that way, but it shouldn't have done. It wasn't usual to do it. This is using the stairs, but necessary as there was no real option.
Yes.
Even without air, it should technically be okay. We've got more help coming. The fire should be out soon. The spread should be fine. People are evacuating okay. Smoke spread as high as the 20th floor for whatever reason. We presume she's in danger, so we haven't got any other option. First option's use the lift. Second option's use the stairs. Okay, we'll use the stairs. Now, you set out there a line of logic. Were those your thoughts at the time?
Yes.
Right, okay. Did you discuss any of those matters at the time with Chris Secret or Dave Badillo?
No. No.
And then you say, in the beginning of the next paragraph, in the second sentence, it took maybe 15 minutes to get up there. It got darker as we got higher. It was never ending. I'm pretty sure the lights weren't on, but the 20th was bright light. Now, just pausing there. Do you remember whether there was any smoke in the stairs as you went up?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Where did that start? So you start on the 8th floor. Where did the smoke in the stairs really start?
Can't be sure. I remember being able to see my radio, my handheld radio, as soon as we got out of the lift, because I had no battery set, I had to prop the hose and the branch on one knee and then try and talk into the radio. And I remember, A, the radio didn't respond, it had gone silent, and 2, I could see the radio, so I could see.
Right.
But then moving further up, it got worse and worse.
And what about temperature?
Not noticeable at that point, but you're insulated in fire gear and Nomex fire gear. You're insulated from exterior ambient temperature for quite some time. It's only when the heat gradually is absorbed by your fire kit and then starts transmitting to your body that you feel heat.
Okay. Just jumping ahead, if I can, to the next page of your statement, the very bottom of page 5, the end of the last paragraph, but 1 on that page, where you do deal with the question of heat. You say, you don't notice it at first. This is the last sentence at the end of that very long paragraph. You don't notice it at first, but we all started to notice it by the time we got to the 20th. Can I just ask you, at what point did you start to notice ambient heat?
It's difficult to say because at that point we're kind of task focused, so my main point is getting to the 20th floor, carrying a load of hose and a branch. So you're working extremely hard. Your fire kit is extremely, it insulates you very well, but also insulates your heat. So any heat you're producing through sweat on a warm summer's night gradually builds up. You're carrying heavy, basically scuba diving equipment on your back, and it's quite difficult. So it happens slowly, and you exert yourself to a point, probably when you stop, you begin to realise that the heat builds up.
Just going back, if we can, to the bottom of the 4th page, your statement. Second line, you say, it got darker as we got higher, it was never ending. Well, you say it got darker. What got darker?
The stairwell.
And was it the light that was fading? Why was it getting darker?
Difficult to say. It could have been that the smoke was obscuring the ambient lighting in the stairwell. It could be that the lighting had failed. It could be that it was just so smoky in the area where I was. There's a pocket of smoke here that I couldn't see. And also you get carbonaceous buildup on your face mask. So you often, if you're in a job, you think you can't see. If you wipe your face mask, although you're smearing stuff around, sometimes you can get a clear slither of view.
I see. Okay. As you went up, could you count your way up by reference to the numbers in the stairwell?
No. You would think on paper it would be possible, but when you are travelling at speed, carrying equipment, and you're just trying to get up the next step, stumbling, falling, it's pitch black, you're not thinking of what floor you're on, you just keep on going up. And I'm aware, I stopped a couple of times to try and send messages on the way up because I was getting anxious that no one could hear us. And no one knew where we were, but I was also falling behind the other two, so I have to keep with them. So I'm running as fast as I can to keep up with them. So I'm not counting floors.
Just on that last answer, in terms of comms, at what point do you think you started to have difficulty communicating?
I don't remember any communication at all from leaving the bridgehead.
Really?
So when we got in the lift, we probably would have selected a floor, got out at maybe the 18th floor and travelled up. That would have been the plan. You know, two floors below and walk up. So I would have transmitted then, but we didn't have the opportunity. So when I came out of the lift, it would transmit better when it's not in a lift shaft. On nothing from the 8th floor. Tried a couple of times, maybe guessing, say, the 12th and the 16th, but again, nothing.
When you say nothing, you're just getting nothing back, or you couldn't get any sound at all from the
Sometimes static, sometimes just the odd word that's, you're picking up a minor bit of a transmission from someone else, but there's certainly no one replying to me. I'm on channel 6. There's no one at the bridgehead. So it's not a congested channel. That's the command channel. So channel 6 would literally be at that time anyone in BA, which would be Tom on the 5th floor, maybe a crew if they're committed to the 6th or 7th, and us. So there'd be no more than four teams in, so maybe 4 or 5 people using that channel.
Is that a lot or
not really? No, not too much, because you tend not to transmit at the same time. So, but I couldn't hear anyone, and I'm pretty sure no one could hear me.
Were you wearing a Barry, or were you communicating
No.
via your fireground radio?
No, unfortunately, Barry sets are every other set. So if you have four people on the back of a fire engine, the rule is that you only have two. So it's presumed that in a partnership of two, one person would have Barry.
Yeah. And who out of the three of you had the Barry, do you remember?
Well, unfortunately, this is where the problem lies, because you don't always go in with your original partner that you were established at change of watch. So in this case, crew manager Secrets should have a Barry set because he's a crew manager. His Barry set, for whatever reason, was off the run, so it had no set. And Dave and I, so I didn't have a set because I was his partner. Dave was either off another machine, off the pump ladder, or in the middle. He didn't have a Barry set either. So
Right.
between three of us, we had no intrinsically safe comm set.
You say intrinsically safe. What in safety terms is the comparison between a Barry set and an ordinary fireground radio?
Essentially, the handset is very similar. It transmits on the same channels, but a Barry set has a Pressel switch and an earpiece, so that you can nudge the earpiece or you can touch it with another part of your body. Whereas with a handheld, you have to hold your other hand. You need a hand to do it. But the other thing is when a Barry set is intrinsically safe, which means it does not provide a suitable source of ignition in a flammable atmosphere. So if you're in a building, say there's a gas leak nearby, you can use a Barry set, but you wouldn't want to walk in there with a handheld radio because the spark may ignite the room.
Right. Okay. Just to come back then to the question of the numbering of the staircase internally as you went up, how did you keep tabs on which floor you were on? As
I
you
honestly
went up?
didn't. I just didn't. I could hear the footsteps ahead of me of Chris. I knew I was within a floor of him, so I had to just keep going.
Right.
Basically, I had to stop when they stopped.
Did you notice on your way up whether you could, if you looked hard enough, find the numbers on the floors?
I don't think I looked. To be in all honesty, we were going to the 20th, so we're going virtually to the top of the building. So you just keep going. It wouldn't be relevant whether I was on the 12th or the 13th.
Now, you say on page 5 at the top, well, perhaps it's not very clear from the statement, but let's pick it up at the bottom of page 4 if we can. You say, Chris was in the doorway holding it open for me and he was knackered. This is 3 lines up from the bottom. Sorry, I started perhaps a little bit too late on. Now, in the doorway, was that on the 20th floor?
Yes.
I see. Doorway from what? The stairwell into the lobby?
Yes.
Okay. And you then say, they went in and searched anyway, and I stayed out on the radio. I was trying to get on the radio. Chris went into the lobby and it was totally clear of smoke. Did you see that for yourself? The lobby was totally clear of smoke.
The lobby was totally clear of smoke. No, because Chris held the door open for me on the 20th, which is the only reason I stopped. I'd have carried on going because I couldn't see anything.
Okay.
So relative to the stairwell, when I was at the top of the stairs, to be honest, I think I was literally on my knees with the hose beside me, because I could see Chris, so I stopped. Smoke will tend to travel downwards from the top, from the roof down. So from maybe, I don't know, shoulder height down, if you stood up in it, it would be pitch black. If you crouch down, you can actually see it's relatively clear. So I could see bright light, relatively speaking, and Chris's feet, and see him stood over, out of breath.
I see.
So I could see that when I got to the 20th. And then he went over to the right and searched the flat.
Okay. So are you saying that in the lobby there was smoke, but it was
Yes.
clustered on the ceiling in a band?
Yeah, yes, further down, but yes.
How far down did it come, do you think?
At least halfway down. But that's changed. That changed quite quickly because Chris was holding the door open, so the smoke. Essentially, what we've done is the firefighting shaft has basically become a chimney. So it's taking smoke from downstairs, heating it, and bringing it straight up towards us. So as he opened the lobby door, basically the lobby would have filled with smoke, which it did.
Right. Okay. Did he hold the door open for long?
Not for long, just to basically make sure I was okay and to get me in.
Right.
He may well have spoke to me, I don't remember.
Okay. So, so you go into the 20th floor lift lobby, and that's the top of page 5. And you say, eventually as they were searching, I went in looking around the hallway, but she wasn't in there. So is that inside the flat that you were sent to? Flat
Yes.
176?
Yes.
Right. So you all three went into that flat?
They went in first. My first thought was we need to have hose. Obviously, we brought hose with us.
Right.
But the lobby became pitch black, like pitch black. So
Before any of you went into the flat, can you describe the door of flat 176? Was it open or closed?
I wouldn't see. No, I don't know.
Do you remember whether Dave Badillo had to use the keys or not?
I don't think he did. I don't think he did. I think it was left open.
You think it was
but
left
I'm not
open?
sure. Yeah, I don't. I can't swear on that.
Okay. And did, when you went into the flat, what was the condition in the flat? What were the air conditions in the flat like?
Similar to the lobby, I could just about make out the shapes of Chris and Dave in there in separate rooms, basically searching very hard for it. I was in the hallway, went down to my knees to see if I could see anything, to see how low the smoke level was. The hall looked clear. I could see enough to see there was nothing in the hallway itself. But it was a small flat, so you don't need 3 people in there searching because you're just getting each other's way.
Right.
So I stayed outside. I'd originally thought I could set into the dry riser, but that was just a pointless idea. So I stayed on comms.
And how far into the flat did you get?
Literally into the hallway, into the door, into the main door. Because I stayed outside. As they went in, I was still catching my breath. And brought the hose inside, so what you don't want is for hose to unravel and become a trip hazard for us or anyone trying to leave the building. So I had to make sure it was packed tightly against the wall so we could find it again. So I did that, took Chris's hose, my hose, the branch, and then went into the flat and basically stayed in the doorway, still trying the radio.
And what about heat? What was the heat like in the hallway? Do you remember?
Yeah, hot. It got hotter. It seemed hotter in the flat than it was in the lobby. It was warm in the lobby, but then more so in the flat. It was a different temperature. But I just thought that was because I didn't think fire was close by, but it just felt like I was hot. I was just heat. I've just been heated up through running up 30 flights of stairs with BA set on.
And what about the light in the flat? Was it dark or was it light in the flat?
It was dark.
Right. Did you try to switch on the lights?
No, you wouldn't do that. No.
You
So
wouldn't
no.
do that. Right. On page 5, you say a third of the way down, there was no point knocking on doors of her neighbour's house, as it never happens that fires that high or quick. It just wouldn't happen for there to be fire all the way up and all floors in between. It just wouldn't happen. It's like knocking on all your neighbours' doors in the middle of the night just to get them out of bed. Just why would you? There's no danger. We knew her flat was smoky, but nobody else had come out of their flat complaining. We didn't know the whole building was on fire. You told us you'd been outside the building at about 1:30.
Yes.
You'd seen the east face
Yes.
substantially at
Yes.
light. Can you just explain why, if you can, why you thought there was no danger?
Because I think disbelief, if I'm honest. I just did not believe that a substance would be put on the side of a building all the way up with no fire breaks, that was completely flammable, that would race up higher than I could run, that would break into every flat on the way, set that flat on fire, and carry on doing that all the way. Like, I think that flat on the 20th floor flashed over minutes after we were in it, so the temperature was rising all the time. I just frankly didn't believe it. I knew the cladding was on fire, but the cladding and the building were almost two separate entities. A building is concrete, and the cladding would just fall away and was burning, and I could see bits of cladding falling away when I was downstairs, so it was just burning and falling away like paper. I didn't believe it was substantial enough. And when I'd seen it, it was 10 floors below where we now were. So just couldn't understand. I'd never seen it before, didn't understand what was happening. And it's just, it was a stressful time. So you're there for a specific task. We're trying to rescue one girl. That's what we're doing, sort of thinking of. It's not, you're not thinking, you're not registering. You're aware of danger and you're dynamically risk assessing everything, but you're not always aware of your surroundings in the way you might normally be.
Did you have any thoughts about where the smoke that you'd seen in the lobby and in flat 176 had come from?
I presumed it had come behind us, from below us, on the stairwell. So I knew that the 4th floor, that the 5th floor, maybe I could believe the 6th floor, were on fire. And it would be a significant fire for it to have licked up into 2 floors. So by that time, teams I knew had gone in on the 4th and 5th floor, so I knew immediately if they're fighting fires, the stairwell is going to be compromised by people exiting the building, by firefighters wedging it open. So that heat and that smoke is going to come directly upwards. So as Chris held the lobby door open and Dave held the lobby door open, I presume that's how it had filled. And also because
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you at all. I think you said earlier that your recollection is that the door of 176 had been left open. Do you know whether it was open in the sense that it was shut but not locked, or standing open?
I honestly don't know. Sorry.
Do you remember anything about the other doors at that level?
On other doors on that floor?
Yeah.
No one came out. There was no indication at all from anyone that anyone else was in distress. There was no smoke alarm going off. Obviously, there's no fire alarm because they took it out. Okay. But there's no one shouting, no one banging on doors. And we were making a fair amount of noise, running around with the hose and bumping into things and banging on doors to find your way. So to navigate through the darkness, it's not a quiet exercise. No one stirred. So our presupposition is that they are safer in their flat. If there was smoke, we knew that the atmosphere we're in was thoroughly irrespirable. There's no way anyone's going to survive long unless you're in breathing apparatus. So there's no way I'm going to knock on someone's door and ask them to come out into that.
I think it follows from what you just said, though, that banging around in the lobby, the doors that you must have come across were shut.
They were shut.
Yeah.
Without doubt.
You said a moment ago, in answer to one of the chairman's questions, that they're safer in their flats because the atmosphere was thoroughly irrespirable. No way anyone is going to survive long unless you're in breathing apparatus. So can I just understand it? That at that time, when you come out of flat 176, if you had not, are you saying this? If you'd knocked on the door of, say, flat 175, for example, and brought somebody out, that the atmosphere would have been unsafe for them to breathe?
Without shadow of a doubt.
And can you give us an impression of how unsafe that would have been?
I know from firefighters who were in there later who tried to rescue people they brought out were unconscious within 1 flight of stairs, 2 flights of stairs. So we were after a 12-year-old girl. We were going to get her, we were going to bring her down. We'd run her down the stairs, we'd have found a way.
How would you have got her down the stairs had you found
I don't know. Doesn't matter, we'd have done it.
All right.
Are you all right? Do you need a break at all?
No, I'm okay.
We can take a break. Plenty of time. We can take a break.
Maybe just a minute then, that's all right.
So
Yes,
you would like it?
Yes, I think.
Yeah, I think we'll have
Mr. Chairman, should we take 5 minutes just to give Mr. Dorgu?
Well, my experience is that 5 minutes, in a sense, is never enough because it's always 10. So I'm going to say 20 to 4. Then give us all time to have a bit of a break.
Right.
All right? Would you like to go to the usher then, please? And don't talk to him about your evidence. All right. 20 to 4, please.
Mr. Dorgu, thank you for coming back to us. Now, after your visit to the 20th floor, can you describe what happened at the moment you all decided to leave?
Dave and Chris came out of the flat, kind of met me in the doorway. And I remember Chris's timer whistle, his whistle was going off, which means he's on emergency air, which kind of jolted me a bit because I realised we're way miles away from the bridgehead. We should never be on the 20th floor. It shouldn't be done because you just haven't got enough air. And then obviously I realised Chris is on emergency air. We've still got to get down. Our breathing rate was high, and we're all quite hot, so we decided to leave immediately. I had no comms, and that was making me pretty anxious because I needed to tell people what was happening. I needed the bridgehead to know. It's heavily smoke logged. Tell them what's happening. But I just couldn't get hold of them, so we decided to leave. I picked up my hose. I remember walking out from the lobby into the stairwell and looking down into the stairwell, and it was totally pitch black, which it shouldn't be. It should be clear. It should be a protected stairwell.
Right. And during the time that you'd spent on the 20th floor, do you think the door from the lobby to the stairwell had remained closed?
Yes, it had, because I had to open it to leave.
And yet you found the stairwell full of smoke, so that
Yeah.
it was pitch black, I think you said.
Yeah, it basically built up against the door because the lobby, as we opened the door, the lobby filled with smoke, and we closed the door, the stairwell filled with smoke.
So did the smoke in the stairwell come from the 20th floor lobby, or do you think it was coming from elsewhere?
Coming from downstairs, I think.
Really?
Yeah, so the smoke was whatever was burning downstairs, which at the time I believed to be a maximum of, say, 3 flats, was coming from downstairs. But you didn't really have time to process the information. Nothing was making sense. The whole night made sense. Nothing happened the way it should happen. The staircase was completely smoke logged and was impassable by normal people without breathing apparatus. And it should be a protected stairwell. The heat was excessive. It shouldn't have been that hot, and I couldn't understand why it was so hot.
Heat in the stairwell?
Heat in the stairwell, heat in the lobby, heat in the flat. It shouldn't have been. It came up through you. It's like being heated from the inside out. It's quite unpleasant. It's not. It wasn't normal. Even though we'd run a long way in breathing apparatus, it still was extremely hot. It makes you a little bit stressed.
And had the conditions in the stairwell changed when you went out into it from when you had first left it to go into the 20th floor lobby?
They'd worsened, yeah, on the way down, definitely.
Did you have any thoughts about where the smoke and heat in the stairwell had come from?
Like I said, it came from the lower level of the stairwell. So it's
Right.
if smoke has spread, if other floors are affected by smoke, then as soon as the lobby doors open, the stairwell, which should be protected by ventilation, is compromised. If that ventilation is not working, and clearly it wasn't, then there's just more and more smoke going to pour out into the stairwell. We were at the top of the stairwell, and we couldn't see anything really. You have pockets of air on the way down, maybe pockets of at times you could see things, you could make things out, but for the most time it was fairly pitch black.
And you say at the top of page 6, Chris had no air.
Yes.
I thought, fuck, I'm going to die. Chris said, I got to go, I got no air. What made you think that you were going to die?
I thought it was likely because we were fairly exhausted, extremely hot. Conditions had worsened beyond anything I'd known on that level. Like, I've been in hotter jobs before. That's like, if you're in a fire, then it's hotter. But we were supposedly 16 floors, 15 floors away from the fire, the last fire that I had confirmed, and only 20 minutes later. So somehow it was incredibly hot up there. I couldn't work out why. And Chris had no air. Well, I say no air. He was on emergency air. We're breathing very, very heavily. So we're carrying heavy equipment. We're carrying our BA. We're exhausted already. We're already hot, so you're breathing more heavily. And Chris is on emergency air, and I didn't think he'd have enough air to get downstairs.
And what was your air reservoir left? How many bar did you have left, do you think?
No idea. There was almost no point checking it. I don't think I was on whistle at the time.
Right.
I don't even know if I was the whole time, but I would have been close on. But either way, if Chris ran out of air, we'd have to try and do an exchange of air, which is complicated to do when you're stressed and when it's hot and when it's pitch black. Or we'd have to drag him out of there. So that would be very difficult.
And what about Dave Badillo? What was his position?
No idea.
Was he on whistle?
And we did it low. We were all, because you all start off with give or take 30, 40 bar, the same kind of amount of air. We've done a similar amount of work. So he's going to be low on air as well. I know he's fairly exhausted.
Right. You then say 3 lines and 4 lines down from the top of page 6. As we went down, it was getting hotter and hotter. Was that unusual, do you think?
If you're in a chimney, no. So if you are, say, for example, going down into a basement, so the fire is in the basement and you make entry via the top of a stairwell, then the closer you get to the fire, the hotter it will be. And essentially that's what we were doing. We were going closer and closer to established fires in the lower levels.
And what about smoke on the way down? Did it get thicker or did it get better?
Thick, but in places not so much, because I could see, I remember seeing Chris's face, because I was concerned because it was so thick. I realised that maybe around the 18th floor, 17th, 16th, that the lobby areas were heavily smoke locked. So I was checking the doors, pushing the doors open and shouting inside if anyone was there, because if they were, there's no way they'd be able to walk out onto the stairwell, and they'd probably collapse in the lobby. So even if you know a lobby, you've known that lobby for 20 years, you've lived there, as soon as it's pitch black, and I mean completely pitch black, it's irrespirable, so you're coughing, you're choking, it's pretty horrific. As soon as you are not touching a wall or a door, you don't know where you are. So then you're lost, and you won't find your way out of the stairwell. That's why a lot of people lost were found in lobbies of stairwells. And even if you do make it to the stairwell, which should be protected, is now entirely choked with smoke. It's irrespirable. So I was concerned that people would basically die a few meters from their front door. So I checked on the levels down to maybe the 15th, but that's when Chris grabbed my arm, and I managed to see his face, and he said, "Mate, I've got no air, I've got to go."
Right. And when you checked into the lobbies on the way down to the 15th or so, what did you see?
They were smoky. If you could see, it would be low down, so I had to crouch down. You could see in the bottom of the smoke layer. I shouted, but obviously when breathing apparatus, your voice is muffled. So when we, as you'll probably come to, we lost each other on the stairs later, you can't really hear more than a floor above because your voice is so muffled. So I was screaming, but I couldn't hear anyone. It was very quiet, really quiet. So no one moving, no one speaking, no smoke alarms going off. So the presupposition would be that the compartments themselves are safe. It's the smoke's coming from the stairwell, and it's flooded the lobbies, but you're better off in your flat.
And would it have been possible to go into any of those lobbies and alert any of the other residents and try to get them out?
If we'd had the air, maybe, but then you're alerting them to there's smoke outside your safe compartment. So you wouldn't, as I said earlier, admittedly we were stressed at this point and very anxious, but you're not going to call people out into an irrespirable atmosphere. I'm not going to knock you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, come out into the smoke. It's not, you would do this. People are safer in their own flat, or so we believed at that time.
And then I think you say that 5 lines down from the top of page 6, my whistle was going now as well, and I couldn't find Dave.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you know what floor you were on when you realised you were no longer with him?
No. I remember Dave, we went down together. I think I was in front, I was carrying hose. I remember around about the 18th floor, Dave said, why are we carrying hose? We're not going to put a fire out. We're just exhausted. Right. So Emery took the hose off me, threw it on the floor. And I remember I couldn't see the hose, so I kicked it into the corner of the stairwell so that it wouldn't trip anybody up coming out, because once unravelled hose is an absolute nightmare. I remember Dave being with me then. Then I was checking stairwell, so I kind of fell behind a little bit. So that was maybe 16th, 17th, 15th floor. I kind of lost Dave, and that's when I was running up a floor. He must have passed me at some point in the dark. It was that dark, he passed me, and I didn't see him.
Right. And where was Chris Secret at this time?
Probably in between us. I think he was more with Dave than with me.
Right. Okay.
And that was when he grabbed my arm and said, I've got no air, and he had to go.
Got to go. And did you go back upstairs to see if you could see Dave?
Yeah. I went up maybe
How
Two
far up
flights.
did you, how
Two
far
flights.
back up did you go?
2 flights, 3 flights, screaming.
Right.
But I couldn't hear him and he couldn't hear me because we were too muffled.
No, and you obviously did find him. Do you know which level you were on when you found him
We were on
again?
the 7th because I rejoined Chris and we were fairly exhausted, so we weren't. There's not a lot to say really. We had to get out. Chris is low on air, and I'm low on air. We're incredibly hot and very stressed, probably suffering from metabolic heat stress at that point, and just keep walking out. But the next time I saw Dave was when he was speaking to Des Murphy on the 7th floor. I remember Chris came to a halt because I was walking directly behind him and he just stopped and Dave was there next to Des. And I remember seeing Des's eyes, so I recognised him through his face mask. And he was shining a light on the wall to show Des what floor we were on the 7th floor.
And indeed, you go on to say that in the last few lines of this paragraph in your statement, where you describe, as you just have, finding Dave Badea showing Des Murphy the sign for the 7th floor. Can I just ask you, perhaps we'll do it by reference to your statement, you say Dave was showing Des Murphy the sign saying it was the 7th floor. Do you remember, was that the floor numbering that appears on the wall of the stairwell?
Yes, that's what he was showing him, yes.
And do you know why Des Murphy had to be shown it?
I believe, I didn't see a single number on the way up or on the way down at any point, but it was apparently not written on, something was written on in felt tip pen, as opposed to a stenciled number made for the task. So it was just etched on by either a resident or a builder or whatever.
You say apparently not written on. I mean, is that something you heard later?
Yes,
I see.
that's because I remember asking Dave later what were you doing and why couldn't you see the sign, and he said because it was written on in hand, by hand, and he had to show Des with his torch exactly where it was.
I see, okay. But you didn't yourself observe any numbering, misnumbering, no numbering on your
I couldn't trip for numbers at all. No,
Okay.
There was nothing obvious, nothing luminescent that would stick out in darkness.
Did you assist anybody, any resident, come down the stairs on your way down?
No, we didn't see anybody. We didn't see anybody from the 20th floor to the 7th. It was just us three. No sound, no one shouting,
Right.
no one on the stairs.
Can I just ask you then, just to look at your contemporaneous note, and you say, at the bottom of page 2, just 3/4 of the way down the page, perhaps a bit more, you say, we decided, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in reading your writing, Mr. Dorgu, but you say, we decided to go to the ECP as it was hot and we were extremely fatigued. And then you say, next to a little asterisk, I helped evacuate resident, I think from smoke-logged 6th floor down the
Yes.
stairs with
Firefighter
O'Byrne.
Yes.
And that's in brackets.
Yes.
Could you just tell us a bit about that?
That may well be. I can't remember that resident actually. I remember taking several people down the stairs. So it's to do with when I was. The asterisk is further up in the page.
So-
When we were informed by residents that there was smoke on higher floors.
I see.
And then I said I helped evacuate residents from the smoke-logged 6th floor.
So
That's when
I
I did that
follow.
with Justin. That's when you asked me earlier who I was with. I think I was with Justin.
I see what you mean. So this wasn't on the trip down
No.
with
No.
firefighter Badeo
No.
and Secret.
This was
at an
earlier.
earlier
This was
stage.
before my BA wear. Sorry, that's what the asterisk is. I thought of it later, so my thoughts were a bit disjointed.
Yeah, that's very clear. So you get down to the bridgehead, and how far before you reach the 2nd floor did that dense, thick smoke reach?
I can't remember.
Was it many floors above the bridgehead, or was it just
Maybe the
before
4th. I would say round about the 4th, the 3rd. I remember coming into light, but to be honest, we were pretty exhausted. I couldn't really stand up. I was just.
Okay.
There's nothing I could say really. I couldn't speak.
And we have the telemetry data showing you, if we could just have that up on the screen, please. We have you tally in at 0:59:29. We see that.
Yes.
We have the same. We have Italian time for Dave Badillo as 01:58:15. We don't have Chris Secrets. Does that time roughly correspond with your recollection?
Yes, around about 2
Okay.
o'clock, yes. I remember looking outside at my watch and it was 2:05,
Right.
and the entire building was on fire.
So by that time, just before 2 a.m. on the 14th, what would you say? Would you say it was possible to evacuate anybody down the protected staircase
No.
without breathing apparatus?
It would be, I think it would be virtually impossible very early on in the fire because
Right.
it was just, it was smoke log very, I think Dr. Barbara Lane said approximately 126, but that's when it was, at that point she thinks it was no longer usable as an escape route, which means the smoke had been building up before that. So bear in mind we got water on the fire approximately 10-15 minutes before that, and we're extinguishing the fire. It would be near impossible. Because you would be walking down into denser and denser smoke.
Right. Okay. But in terms of your experience, you've been in the tower, up
Yeah.
the stairs in breathing apparatus
Yeah.
from 1:35 to 1:59, just before 2 o'clock, so 25 minutes.
Yeah.
During any of that period of time, when you've been up and then down again, would you say that it was possible to evacuate anybody from any floor down that protected staircase successfully and safely?
I don't think so. Not from that time. Even from the 8th floor was smoke log, so it would have been very difficult. It may have been feasible, but they would have been unconscious. They would have needed to be rescued by BA crews, which is the reason I went out to get my set, because I realised if the smoke's spreading, I'm going to have to be in BA so that I can help other people. If not, I'll succumb to the effects, and so will my colleagues of smoke, as would a resident, so you're no help to them.
Now, when you tallied in to the bridgehead, as we've seen, and switched off, did you have a debrief with anybody at the bridgehead?
We most certainly will have done, but I cannot remember. I think we all were suffering the effects of heat stress and were pretty exhausted, so we would have said there's no way we would have come down and just wandered off, but I can't remember. I can't remember saying anything.
Okay, in your statement at page 6, 3 lines down from the start of the second main paragraph on that page, you say, "We couldn't find the girl, so told control and came out.
Yes.
We told them what we did and what it was like." Do you remember if you told... Well, first of all, who did you tell that to?
Control. Alpha Control. Alpha Control is the engine control board, not
Yeah.
Control.
Right, was that Alex?
Alex or Justin,
Alex
watch
or-
manager O'Keeffe in charge.
Or Justin? What about Brien O'Keeffe? Did you have a conversation with him?
Possibly, but we're more likely to speak to the guy who's giving you your tally back, so that would be the engine control officer. So Brien O'Keeffe has overall command, but the guy you'd actually speak to would be more likely be the ECO firefighter, and he would make a note of it on the board.
Okay. And do you remember what any of those firefighters did with that information? Alex Dustin-Dorbin, Justin O'Brien, or Brien O'Keeffe? What did they do with the information?
They would have made a
that you
note of
couldn't
it
find the girl?
on the board, or maybe the forward information board, but honestly, I was in a state, so I can't remember.
You don't remember seeing them do
No.
that?
No, I'm sure they would. I'm 100% sure they would have done, because it's crucial information. And obviously, by the time we came down, the incident has escalated beyond anything we've ever encountered. So they would have been making notes on that.
Do you remember any discussion or conversation at the bridgehead at that time about any fire survival guidance calls in relation to a flat on the 23rd floor instead of the 20th floor?
No, we had no information at all when we set off. I know the girl we tried to rescue was found, I think, on the 23rd floor. We had no information whatsoever, which is why I was so anxious to get communications, especially when we're on the 20th floor, as to where she was, if they'd found anything, if they knew anything. So no, we had no information whatsoever.
Yeah. And you then went from the bridgehead out of the tower.
Yes.
Okay. And did you assist in bringing out casualties?
Later that evening, we recovered for a short time on the grass in front of the leisure centre, looking at the building, and I realised that I could see the front of the building. I realised there's hardly anyone coming out. There's no one, no one's really coming out. There's no hordes of people. There must be hundreds of people in there.
Right.
So I ran back without my breathing apparatus up to the bridgehead. I had to run across the concourse, and parts of the building are falling off at that point. And as casualties were brought down to the bridgehead, someone will shout casualty, and I brought quite a few bodies out with the help of other people, carried them out across the concourse out to the London ambulance.
Were they conscious or unconscious, do you think?
They were unconscious. I don't think anyone was alive, to be honest, but it's not my call to say, but they were lifeless.
Can I just ask you to look at your contemporaneous notes on the last page? You say there, a third of the way down, I helped take 4 casualties down the stairs from the bridgehead. This is, as I say, a third of the way
Yes.
down. All were unconscious. Watchman Jadadin was one member of one of the crews who assisted me. I carried 1 casualty on my shoulder from the front door to the LAS cruise. Do you remember any of those casualties in particular?
To be honest, they were suffering the effects of smoke inhalation, so their faces were covered in saliva, and they'd be blackened, so not really. I think one was a big guy, quite large. The other one that I carried on my shoulder, there was 2 of us and we couldn't get a grip on her, so I kind of pulled her onto my shoulder and did it by myself, and ran out of them. The only reason I think she's a woman is because she was lighter, but honestly I couldn't tell. Some of them were burnt, some were blackened. I couldn't possibly tell.
You say all were unconscious.
Yes.
Is that right?
So
Is that right?
they were all unconscious, yes.
But alive?
I don't know. They were lifeless to look at, but it's not my call to say whether they're alive or not.
No,
I took them to London Ambulance Service and they
Understand.
dealt with them there.
Okay. You then say that you went back into the tower after about 20 minutes.
Yes.
Did anybody tell you to do that, or did you do that of your own accord?
No, I just did that because I could
Right.
see no one was coming out.
Okay. And you say that the air... I'm just trying to find the reference to it. You say halfway down page 7, the fumes were disgusting. Where was that when you experienced them?
That was at the front of the building, so south side, the front of the building by the main exit. There was a lot of debris coming off the top of the tower, the side of the tower. A lot of molten aluminium, which I think was melting through our fire gear, because you could feel nipping on your skin. So it was quite bad, and the fumes, the smell was acrid smoke. Because after I'd taken 3-4 people out and carried them across the causeway under that debris, I kind of collapsed because I couldn't breathe anymore.
Right.
It was too acrid.
If you go back to your contemporaneous notes, you say on the 3rd page, halfway down, I also helped walk several, I think, does it say young
girls
out of the building.
Yes.
One with crew manager Batcheldor.
Yes.
The girl, or the girls, was from flat 95.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything more about them?
I helped walk her out, crew manager Batcheldor, out of the front door, but I ran into another girl who looked very similar to her, similar build, similar height, long black hair, but younger. I think maybe the one girl was 12, the other one was maybe 9.
Right.
And the woman was screaming because she'd lost her husband and her daughter.
Okay.
And
what did you do anything with that information?
yeah, I said, I think I've seen your sister, and she asked me asked her what flat she was in, and she said 95. So I ran over to where I'd seen with crew manager Batcheldor on the side and said, what flat are you from? The girl said 95, and she'd lost her dad I think they'd been coming down the stairs and she'd lost his hand. So, but we later found her dad alive and well, and I was able to run back to the mum and the daughter and say that the rest of your family's alive and well.
Okay. You, I think, also talk about trying to calm somebody down outside the tower. Well, Chris was on the phone to his wife. On the 23rd
crew manager Batcheldor again.
It's Batcheldor, is it not?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, Chris, crew manager Batcheldor. He was on a fire survival guidance call, but, well, it wasn't FSG, it was, he was on the phone, I think using the man's mobile phone to call either his wife or his sister, I couldn't make out.
Right.
And the man was extremely distressed. Crew manager Batcheldor stayed on the phone with him until she succumbed to the smoke.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the man you were talking to?
Small, but not a big guy, but just very distressed. Black hair, maybe my complexion. Right. I couldn't describe him really any more than that.
Okay. Did he give you a flat number? Did you know what flat number?
No, I can't remember. No.
Okay. I think you also mentioned that in general terms you helped out with FSG calls.
Yes.
What? And you I think you say. This is the bottom of page 7 in the third line. Loads of FSG calls were coming in with a guy from Euston doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know who that was?
I don't, actually.
I mean, we have Euston arriving A231 at about 1:45. Does that help in terms
Possibly.
of time?
It was a while after I'd come out from the building and a while after I'd carried bodies out, so
Right.
1:45 maybe about right.
Okay.
And it's just basically I was a runner, so I was running between. They had lots of FSGs, so they had calls coming in, family of 4 or family of 2, the flat number, the floor number, the state, and basically I was taking those sheets of paper and running around to the control unit 2 or 3 at a time.
Right. Okay. You say a guy from Euston. Are you confident that it was Euston?
No, because if I'm honest, I can't remember who it is now.
Okay. Because we have other people, maybe Lambeth.
No, I don't think I know anyone from Lambeth, so maybe not, no.
All right. At the foot of page 7 of your statement, just 1 or 2 questions about this. You say this is 5 lines up from the bottom. Some information was written on sheets which I took to the command unit in Grenfell Road for them to action. I was shoving the FSG information through the door, but they were overwhelmed. There must have been, as there was so much coming in. Do you remember which number this command unit was that you were pushing FSG information into?
No, but it's the one part in Grenfell Road. So it's the only approach road directly to the base of the tower. It was that one.
Was it the one nearer because there were 2 there, I think, by 2 o'clock. Was it the nearer one to the tower or the further one?
I think it was the nearer one, towards the middle of Grenfell Road. I think the other one was at the top of Grenfell Road.
Now, you say you were taking information written on sheets to the command unit. Where were you getting the sheets from?
From the guy who I think was at Euston, and they were writing down wherever they get the information from. So they were saying who was there, and what state they were in, what state their flat was in.
And where was he getting the information from? Do you remember?
I don't actually know. I think he was either had a fireground radio from an officer directly to control. Otherwise, I don't know.
And what was that information that you were taking back to the command unit?
It's basically the information giving you their location. So the most important thing with an FSG, as with finding the fire, as I said earlier, is that the location. So you know what flat they're in, what floor they're in, so that if you're going to, you can't have a mass evacuation because it's too dangerous. Mass evacuation is inherently dangerous because the stairs will get clogged, the lobbies will get clogged with people who can't breathe, and then we can't get into A, fight the fire, and B, to rescue people. So if someone has a location and you know where they are in their flat, you hold them on the line, so control will stay on the line with them, so you know the conditions around them, you can reassure them, tell them to shut windows, block under doors, etc. You know the state they're in, you know how many of them there are, you know if they're disabled, if they have breathing difficulties, if they are, their age, etc. So you have a lot of information in an FSG call. All the information is written down and basically consolidated at the control unit.
Right. I'm just wondering, so you're taking in that information back to the command unit from the person doing an exercise
On the ground.
on the fire ground.
Yeah.
Where was that person getting the information?
The information may well have been coming from actual residents themselves. So it's like as Dave Badillo he just literally walked into a woman who said, my daughter's on the 20th floor.
Right.
So I think a lot of FSGs were coming from people outside who were looking up and saying, my family's up there. That's what happened to the guy Chris Batchelor was talking to.
And and the person who was giving you the pieces of paper, this is the guy you thought was from Euston.
Yes.
And he was writing information on pieces of paper. Did you see him write information on pieces of paper? And where was he getting that information from?
As I say, I think it's from either people on the fire ground or he's got a direct line, because there was an ADO there as well, a station manager.
Yes.
So he will have had direct contact with control, so it may well have been through that.
He would have had direct contact with control, you think?
Well, so station managers have not fireground radios, but radios that have a dual capacity to work on the fireground, but also directly to control.
Did you see the person that you were taking the pieces of paper from on the radio to control directly?
No. I know they would have had a radio, and they would have had that capability.
Okay. And what was the purpose of giving these pieces of paper to the command unit? Do you remember?
Because the command unit can consolidate them and then feed that into the bridgehead.
Okay. How would they feed that into the bridgehead?
By radio, or at some point, if the radio is congested, they could do it directly, as in run pieces of paper the opposite direction.
And do you know the names of the people in the command unit you were giving the pieces of paper to?
No, I do not know.
No. And what about, do you know which stations they were from?
No, sorry, no.
And do you know whether the information was about people who needed to be rescued or about successful rescues so that they could be, as it were, crossed off the list?
No, it's about people who needed to be rescued,
Right.
which is why I was concerned, because I was aware of the volume of FSGs coming in, the volume of people who need to be rescued.
Right.
Just the scale of it was unheard of.
And do you remember how long you were carrying out this role of ferrying information back and forth?
Maybe 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3 trips.
Right.
I did from there, just grab one, take it over, take 2 or 3 at a time, run it over. So not long, but it stuck in my mind, because I realised how many people were in trouble, and how many families there were in trouble, and how many flats have been compromised.
Okay. Just 1 or 2 questions.
Are you happy to go on a little bit?
If it's possible
Well, you'd
to
probably
conclude
prefer
today.
it to coming back tomorrow, wouldn't you?
I would, yes.
Anyway, Mr. Chairman, I've only got about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, that's all right. It's just I thought the witness should be asked
Yes.
how they feel. Yes.
No, of course. I just want to ask you about smoke vents. If you go to page 8 of your statement, you say in the last paragraph, 3 lines down from the start of that paragraph, the smoke extraction system wasn't working. Is that something you yourself observed on the night?
It's a presumption, because the stairwell, which should have been a protected stairwell, protected by a smoke extraction system, which we knew existed, the stairwell was completely compromised.
So that's an assumption rather than an observation?
Yes, it's a self-evident presumption.
Can I just get back then to the question of numbering? You did 2 trips above the bridgehead. The first one was when you went to the 5th and 6th floors that you described.
Yes.
And the second was the trip with the BA from the 8th floor to the 20th. On the first trip, when you first went above the bridgehead, up to the 4th floor, then the 5th and 6th, did you notice anything about the floor signs at that stage?
As in the levels?
As in, yes, I mean, did you notice whether or not they were clearly written on the walls of the stairway?
I knew I was on the 4th, because that's where the fire floor. So, because you're only travelling 1 or 2 floors, 2 flights of stairs, you're on the 5th. Do something, then 2 flights of stairs, you're on the 6th.
Right.
So there was no need to count them.
Right.
So, and I never noticed anything.
You didn't?
No.
Okay. And then I just want to ask you 1 or 2 questions about radios. The other, in your trip up to the 20th floor with Dave Badillo and Chris Secret, I think you said that they all had handheld radios.
Yes.
Were they on? Do you know whether they were?
Were they on?
Yeah, were they operating?
Yes.
Okay. And could you hear that your radio was transmitting to their radios?
I don't know actually. We were spread out, so I wouldn't be able to hear.
Right.
If they're a floor ahead of me, I wouldn't hear necessarily what their radio was doing.
And would there be any reason why you couldn't transmit to them? Because you were in a group together.
Yeah, we could try. I could do. And also, if you're close together, if maybe 6 feet away or 10 feet away, if I'm transmitting, you get not static, that kind of high tone whistling.
The feedback.
Feedback. You get feedback, so you know immediately. So you know to move further away. So if someone transmits next to you, you don't hear their message. You get feedback, and that never happened.
That didn't happen.
No.
You say? Right.
No.
And so, did you ever actually experience being able to communicate with them, even though they were close by, on your fireground radios?
No, we do it by in darkness in BA. You'd always do it by shouting, as opposed to, because you should never really be too far apart from your BA partner. So you should search rooms together. You should always be touchable, really, and certainly within voice range. Because as soon as you're more than a few meters away, you risk getting lost.
Right. Finally, did you ever suggest to either Chris Secret or Dave Badir that they should try their fireground radios to be able to contact the Bridgehead?
I'm fairly sure Chris tried. I don't know about Dave, but I'm fairly sure Chris tried at one point. But I know the radios were working because early in the night I've been communicating quite well with Chris Secret at the Bridgehead and with Dave Badillo between the 3rd and 4th floor. I could hear Justin O'Byrne on the radio. I could hear traffic from outside even. So they were definitely working, definitely on.
Yes. Just finally, in the last paragraph of page 8 of your statement, Mr. Dorgu, you say in the third line, we could have done with masks for casualties to give portable 15 minutes. Is that a piece of equipment that actually exists?
It's a piece of equipment that does exist, but it's not used by the London Fire Brigade.
Do you know whether it's used by any other fire brigade in the UK?
I believe it is. I know Dorgu do it's basically a self-contained mask that you can put on your face, has 50 minutes of air, oxygen. I know there's a watch manager at the moment who is working on a project to produce those. If we'd had them on the night, it would have made a huge difference.
Were they generally available in the UK to UK fire brigades in June, as at June 2017?
Yeah, you can see them on the internet. You can see it. We did, the following days, one of the guys was saying, what we need is these. They're on the internet, about £60 each.
Do they have an independent supplier there?
Yes, 15 minutes.
In a little
It's
canister?
just a little face canister. It's almost like a scuba diving mask, little thing on the front. You know, like a chemical mask you'd see on using, I don't know, chemical spraying room or something. Just little oxygen cylinders here. Put it on your head. Thoroughly independent, lightweight, portable, easily used by children, adults. We didn't have them.
Do you know for a fact from your own experience that these are in use in tower blocks, high-rise buildings in the UK?
I wouldn't say they would be. I don't think they're in tower blocks. I think there may be other brigades who use them, but I couldn't swear to that. But I can say that there is a use for them, and they do exist, and they're not absorbently expensive. So they could have.
Right. Mr. Dorgu, I've got no further questions for you, Mr. Chairman.
No,
Thank you very much indeed. I'm very
you.
grateful to you for coming to us and explaining so much to us. And,
Yeah.
and
very much.
you've been extremely helpful. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to echo that, Mr. Dorgu. It's been really valuable to have your evidence. I'm sorry it took longer than you perhaps
okay.
had hoped, but
That's all right.
it's been very useful to us. And I'd just like to say I'm full of admiration for your courage.
Thank you.
Thanks. Would you like to go to the usher then, please?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, before you rise, there are discussions going on at the moment between the inquiry team and some core participants about the timetable for the rest of this week and the early part of next. I'm not sure I'm able to say anything today to you about that, but I hope to have some clear news first thing in the morning.
Yes, all right.
There needs to be some jigging around with the timetable a little bit, but I hope not too much.
Are you able to tell us who we're going to see in the morning?
Yes, in the morning we will have Daniel Merrick,
Right.
and he will be our witness for tomorrow.
Right. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Well, we've run rather late this evening, I'm afraid, but I think it was in everyone's interest to complete Mr. Dorgu's evidence, certainly in his interest. We'll break now and resume at 10 o'clock tomorrow, please. Thank you very much.